Hey, and welcome back to another episode. What if the biggest differentiator in leadership today isn't strategy, intelligence, or even experience, but the human connection? What if the leaders who create trust, navigate conflict well, and bring out the best in others are the ones who truly stand apart? Today, I'm joined by Nanci Appleman-Vassil, founder and CEO of APLS Group, where for more than 25 years, she's helped leaders and teams strengthen communication, deepen self awareness, and build healthier work cultures. She's an executive coach, certified professional speaker, and what many call a true expert in the human side of leadership. So, Nanci, welcome to the show. Why don't you just tell us a little bit more about yourself that we don't already know?
So, what I would say to you is that ever since I was 4 years old, I knew that I was interested in people and people and connections. I don't think I labeled it as such. It started with my mother and I being in a restaurant, and we would look around and wonder what the story was about that family or that couple or those couple of friends. And always wondering, because body language always says so much more than the actual words. And I was just fascinated by it. I was fascinated from that early age and continued even in um, elementary and middle school, where I would get involved in projects that were all people related. And then I worked in the guidance office in high school because I was very interested in that whole notion of helping people.
When you got into the notion of helping people and you got into the people connection business, what was your first real, like, you know what, this is the job in the career field that I want to go down?
So it was actually when I was taking my National Certified Counselor exam in 1984 when I was a mere child. And there were 77 questions, and two of the questions were answers that I had right away. One was about a company I was working for, which was a nonprofit educational institution called NTL Institute. And the other was about Carl Rogers, who is my favorite therapist, and what would he do? And so he would do a lot of nodding and he would do a lot of, so what I hear you saying is, and then he would say things like, say more about that. And I was like, that's it. That's it. That's really what I want to do. I want to just ask people open ended questions to find out more because I'm curious and to help them help themselves.
When you got into this career field and you started helping people find themselves, what were some of the things that really shocked you that you were like, I was not expecting this at all?
I think that such a large percentage of people have a low self esteem of themselves, that there have been messages, either as young children or during school years or in their jobs, where they're not pumped up, as I would say, not encouraged and to be excited about what they're doing, and instead being told what they don't do. And so that then people are afraid to take a risk, to step out of it. And in times of change, like we're existing, we're always existing change in our lives, but particularly now, it's like people are really afraid to move. They call it job hugging now, where people are just holding on to the job, even though they hate it or they're not excited by it because they're afraid of going after something else because will I be able to get it? So I think it starts in childhood a lot of times, and then it moves its way into adulthood as well.
It's interesting that you bring that up because as I talk to folks and they're like, you know what, the job market now seems like people are changing from job to job to job. Are you finding the opposite where people are like, you know what? No, I'm actually good where I'm at, even though I don't like it.
So I think it's a balance of both, right? I think it depends on the individual. Like I have a colleague who she was in a job and she really loved it at first, and then the dynamics changed and it became a more toxic environment. And it was like, oh, I'm waking up in the morning and I really have to go back to the office. And so she had planned to leave by a certain date and she was okay with that. And she was, doing everything that she normally does, which is over and beyond what she's supposed to be doing. And then just one day she woke up and she said, I can't do that. I just cannot go another 60 days. And so she ended up resigning, giving a 2 weeks notice, of course, but resigning. And then there are others that I talk to because, people reach out to me because I always say, just give me a call. I'm available, right? We've had a relationship. Maybe we work together, either internal in an organization or you were a client of mine or a participant of mine. I'm available to you. I'm a resource to you. And I find that some of them are like, I feel stuck. I feel like I really want to venture out, but I'm afraid to venture out because I'm responsible for X percent of the revenue that comes in for our family. When I started my business 25 and a half years ago, which seems like, what had that happen? It was the biggest risk I ever took in my life because my husband was the entrepreneur. He was the one that was venturing out, and we had a restaurant, we had a food truck, we had a gumball business. I mean, we just had all sorts of businesses through the years. And then I got laid off for the second time in my life. And I thought, well, I don't really want a trifecta. I really would like to not be my own responsible for me. And so through outplacement services that I got as a result of my being laid off in my that job, I was able to spend 3 months talking to a counselor and doing a whole bunch of research and saying, you know what? And I applied for other jobs and I got job offers and I thought, they have their Sunday best on today because they're trying to recruit me and recruit them, get that position filled. And I was like, you know what? I just think maybe I need to do this on my own. And it was, I mean, in so much, Tim, as my father was an entrepreneur. He had a woodworking business in New York. He was a subcontractor for schools and hospitals in the five boroughs. He made those little cubby holes that kindergarteners put their stuff in, and doors and so forth. And my parents had divorced and they both remarried. And my father said to his new bride, I need to fly up to Raleigh to see my daughter. She wants to do this. She wants to become an entrepreneur. And so it was July 4th of 2000. Just started the business 2 days previous to that. And he came up for the day because he had two questions that he wanted to ask me and he wanted to see my face. So we did the whole family thing. We did a 3-mile walk. We went and had, lunch. Then he and I went up to my office. Now, my father was a mathematician by passion. That's how he was used in the army, actually.
Oh, okay.
And so he, I had all my books ready, right? My debits, my credits, my spreadsheets, the whole thing. He said, Nancy, that's nice. And we were sitting across from each other, not behind my desk, but we were face to face, so no blockage. He said to me, I have two questions. He said, question number one, is this something you really want to do? And I said, absolutely, Daddy. I'm taking what I've learned, my schooling, my experience, and I'm applying it. Okay. Do you think you'll be successful? And I said, absolutely, I'll be successful. He said, okay, that's it. Let's go have a drink and let's go have dinner now, because it was about time to have another meal. And it was so profound for me. First of all, that, how fortunate I was. I miss him every day. He's been gone for a long time, but that he just wanted to see my eyes. It was before FaceTime and before Zoom and some of these other technology pieces. And he just wanted to know, he wanted to feel it, that I wasn't just saying it or I wasn't. And so, I had to learn how to go from having a paycheck, every 2 weeks, company putting in the bonuses and the whatevers to, okay, am I going to make payroll this week, this month or so forth. So, yeah, that was probably more than you were asking
No,
a question about. But as you know, I'm a storyteller. So,
that's perfect because you had talked about the power of belief when we're younger, and people talk us out of our own belief. And it seemed like your dad just wanted to see, do you believe you're going to be successful? Because if you believe you're going to be successful, then you will. And so, how often do you work with clients and they just don't have that belief? How do you help reinstill that belief? Like, no, you can be successful, and you're going to be successful.
I use open-ended questions. And those open-ended questions are like, what's your biggest fear? What would happen if you don't have success? Now, I think about, was it Ray Kroc with McDonald's? That was like his 13th venture, right? That he had failed so many times and he just had that determination. I'm a firm believer in learning, right? So what do I learn from that experience? What did we do in that situation that, okay, it created this, but you know what? Maybe let's figure out what we're going to do the next time around that we don't do that, or it's a different type of thing. And I think it's for people stepping away from what they're doing to say, what is it that I want? Like I think I've mentioned this to you when you and I've talked before, but I believe in what brings you joy. And that's what you need to be focused on. And so if what you're doing is joyful, then how do you expand it, right? So that you continue it in that way. And those people that are not believers, how do I help them to be believer, to believe in themselves? Like if you could take away that fear, what would happen? You'd have success, right? So here's in 1986, I was pregnant with my son, and the Challenger accident happened. And I wasn't aware, but I was gravitated to the television on that whole thing and the whole with the tile and the whole thing that was going on. And I developed a fear of flying as a result of that. And so what I learned about myself is that I'm extremely resilient. I'm very creative when I need to be. And so I had a job and I was an executive in the nonprofit and I had to go places for meetings, but I wasn't flying. I made reservations and then I would cancel them. Back in the day, that's what I like to say. You could do that without it costing you an arm and a leg, right?
Yep.
So, but I was very creative. I would take the train or I didn't take buses or I would drive and I had a newborn, right? So I would find somebody along the way who was a friend that, hey, you want to take care of my kid for 5 hours while I go to a meeting, right? So, and then I realized, look, I couldn't continue to do it that way. So I went for therapy. As a counselor myself, I believe in, we all need some help from time to time. I also went to a hypnotist. And between the two of them, they helped me. The hypnotist gave me a tape that said, do a countdown from 50. And when you do that, what happens is he the therapist was saying, you know, the pilot knows what they're doing, the noise you hear is this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I still use that 50 and down to 0 as a way in which to meditate when I
Oh,
just
okay.
have a start of a day. And so what I realized is I was not going to allow the fear of flying to inhibit my passion and desire to be with people and go places and see things. And so in 2010, I traveled around the world to give a presentation at the HR Summit in Singapore. I literally flew from Raleigh to Philadelphia, Philadelphia to Amsterdam, Amsterdam to Singapore, Singapore to LA. I mean, it literally was around the world. And that's when I realized that anybody can do anything if they put their mind to it. I'm seeing the world and I'm about 20,000 miles from getting the 1 million mile club. And that was a goal, right? That was a goal, was like to say, okay, well, go from nothing to, again, sharing it with you and the audience is really about you asking the question, like, how do you get people to get up? Right. And I had people around me who said, there's tools here that'll help you be able to. Now, I help people on planes now all the time when I see somebody who's clearly not happy about flying. And I share with them the things that I learned. And I think that's what we're all about when we're in the helping business as well, is when you have to pay attention and see what's happening for somebody to be able to help them in some way.
And I love the fact that you bring up about helping people. We're in the people business and we're in the service business. So when we're in a volatile and disruptive environment right now, and there's a lot of folks that are getting laid off, how do we help those folks realize like it's not you all the time. Sometimes it may be, but all the time it's not you. And so how do we help those folks recover from that setback? Because oftentimes there's a stigma associated with it and you're afraid that, "Oh, maybe somebody else won't hire me." So how do we help those folks come out of that?
So I did that for quite a while. So after I went through counseling through the outplacement services, they then hired me to be a consultant for them. And so I was helping others. And the toughest question that somebody has to answer when they're going on a job interview is, why are you looking for work? And your ability or inability to say, perhaps you heard about the 1,000 person layoff. I was part of that. And here's what I'm able to help you with today. Here's the skills that I can bring to the table because I did some research about your organization, and here's how I can support you. So that's helping them answer that question. The other is helping them understand to what you said, which is, for the most part, it's not their fault. For the most part, right? You start to wonder if it happens multiple times, like, is there something in my behavior that's making that happen? But for the most part, what I have explained to people and continue to is people at the executive level have either been given a mandate from the parent company that says you need to strip 20% of the people, or they make a decision that says our bottom line is such that we got this department, we need to get rid of this department. It has nothing to do with the people that are associated. Now, HR has to do all sorts of things like make sure that they keep all their stats and make sure that it's not one generation that's being eliminated, etc. And what surprises me in this day and age that we're in is that companies sometimes have not figured out how to do it the right way. And the right way is with care and the human side of it, which is giving outplacement services, or at least giving what's the latest tips and techniques for getting something new as well. I just read in we have a Triangle Business Journal. It comes out every week. And there's a company that's made its a reputation here in the Raleigh area, and they laid off 10% of their people, and most of the people are here. So the article spoke to the fact that they were going to be eliminating 90 jobs out of the 900 that exist, and that people were going to be notified with an email. So I have to tell you, right, I have to tell you what happened to my heart. It went right to my stomach. And I said, in this day and age, in 2026, you're notifying people with an email? How unhuman is that? Inhumane is that, right? I just was floored by it. And it's a company that don't need to say what the name of it is. I had done some work for the company, and then they said that I was too old to do any more training for their people. Meanwhile, their people loved it, but they had you talk about stigma, right?
Yep.
The stigma about, well, maybe you're aging out a little bit here. I know, it's a flabbergaster moment.
So that baffles me because, especially more seasoned folks have a lot of experience. And if you're willing to do the training, I don't see why not do the training. And then the other part that you brought up was, you're going to notify people via email. Like, where is the human connection with that? And then how often do people say, well, we're not providing any services? Maybe you should have just thought about that on your own on how to develop yourself.
Yeah, so unfortunately, the services cost money. So if a company is not doing well and it's not cheap, as we say, or inexpensive, they may say, well, we really can't afford it. But there is something you could do. Like we offer, and we've had a couple of clients. We don't have a lot of clients that take us up on this. But there's about three or four of us that used to be in the outplacement business. And so we offer like a resume writing and interviewing skills workshop. And so, and then maybe some additional coaching, but it's at a much lower fee than it would be with some of the big, organizations like Lee Hecht Harrison and Right Management and Sunbelt and some of these others that would be charging a lot more. And everything is moved to online, which is also, it's an alternative, one might say, but it's not the human connection as we know it. I think that what people remember is they remember how they were treated by the organization. Like, I always say we hire the best and the brightest. They don't get stupid when they walk in the door, right? So it's like people know when the business is doing well and people know when it's not doing well. When I got laid off, I was called to New York, which is where the parent company was, for like this meeting that I didn't know anything about. And I thought, I think I'm getting laid off today. I just had this feeling. I had an office in New York and an office down here. And so because I did training up there and I did training down here, and then I went to the very other sites. And I knew when I walked in, I said, but my name was still on the door at the one in New York. I said, oh, maybe they didn't get around to that yet. And then my new boss came in and says, oh, he used to call me Nav. He said, Nav, we're going to meet in the conference room. I said, they walk in. HR and my boss walk in, and I said, I knew today was a day I was going to be laid off. And then I was told I was too expensive. And I thought to myself, see, I'm from New York originally, so I have a cynical side to me and a sarcasm that I have to, take care of from time to time. And at that moment, I thought to myself, yeah, and you told me about this meeting at 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, and I had to be up here today. So the ticket was $900. Okay. So there's a disconnect here, right? Then on top of that, they said to me, because I think they thought I was going to be emotionally distraught and wouldn't want to go back home. They said, well, we've got a hotel room for you tonight. I said, what? I said, "I'm going home. What, are you kidding?" And then they said, "We want you to come back up in a couple of weeks because some of the groups," because I had touched almost everybody in the organization. They said they wanna take you out to dinner. And I thought to myself, "But, like, you told me I'm too expensive, and now you're having me come back." And I did. I went back up because I'm a people person, and I wanted to see all these folks. So there's a way to do it, and there's a way not to do it. And I just, it surprises me because I think the bottom line here is, or like what's at the core, is that people don't like to share bad news. Like,
Yeah.
it's not my favorite thing to tell somebody they can't work with me anymore. Like, I'd much rather you do what you need to do, right? Or, hey, I've had a couple of times in the last couple of years where we've had to downsize, eliminate a position or ask people to cut their hours, and people either do it or not do it, but I spent lots of sleepless nights thinking about it because I feel responsible. But I think that there's a humanistic way to treat people. And to your original point, I think is because there's so much more of it now. And I was thinking about how, like in the Japanese culture,
Hmm.
the man will not tell his family that he was laid off. He will, I've heard stories about this, that they go to some kind of park somewhere and they spend the whole day there.
Wow.
And they get dressed up like as if they're going to work. And then they come home at the end of the day because they're still getting severance, right? So it's not like there's a and that's like our inability to be able to say something's shifted here, something's
Right.
changed, and we value and appreciate what you've brought to the table. And if we have the opportunity to bring you back in, we will. But right now, the business can't afford it. I think there's a lot of concern around AI and the impact that AI is going to have on people's jobs. Amazon cutting 30% of its workforce, some others doing some large numbers as well. And where are those people now? I mean, I think about that a lot.
And I think about AI displacing jobs, and I think we're moving too fast. Personally, I think we're moving too fast to eliminate humans from the workforce because AI is not that smart yet. You need a person to be in the machine to correct AI, not the other way around. And
Exactly.
there's actually an Amazon distribution center up the road. And if you go there, you can actually see all the automation and work, and there's people, but it's more like the machines tell the person what to do, and the person just acts like another part of the robot and the process to move a package. And it just baffled me because I was like, yes, they take care of their people. Yes, they do a great job. But just watching it, the process, I was like, we're not treating people like people anymore. We're treating people like robots. And so I want to talk to the leaders of like a potential company that may not be able to do outpatient or out severance. You
Yeah.
called it something else, but with
Outplacement. That's okay. Yeah,
outplacement,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
right.
They're like outpatient too, because it's true. They do become patients in some way.
So outplacement services, they may not be able to afford it, but I'm still leading people. I still have a responsibility for them. What are things that I can do to help set those people up for success?
So I think it's having a conversation. It's having a coaching conversation almost. Like, forget I'm your manager right now. Let's just have a one-on-one coaching moment. So, what are some of the things that are, again, what are you afraid of? What are you concerned about? What are your strengths? What parts of this job do you really like and you'd like to find something that's similar to it? Or what might be some additional skills that you'd like to have? And give people that opportunity before you let them go. If you know it's coming as a leader, if you know that it's coming down the pike in 6 months, like if things don't shift, it's gonna, right? Then why don't you say, "Hey, let's talk about some skill building. We haven't done any professional development in a while. Let's get you enrolled in a community college course on X, whatever that may be." Do you want to tap or dip your foot into something else? Here's the opportunity to do it. I remember at the nonprofit, we had a new executive director, and first thing he did was promote the two women because the previous executive director felt like we were just kind of that sweeping the floors, I think. And he said, it's real clear to me that you haven't been given the benefit of being directors. And so he changed us to directors. And then he sat down with each member of the executive team and individually and said, "Here's what my expectation is. So here's where you're really strong, Nancy, but I need you to be more strategic. So here's some things for you to consider. I'd like you to take a course, read a book, do a seminar, whatever those things were. to help you get to where I want you to be. And I think that that's makes a good leader. A good leader is thinking about, can that person take their job? You want them to take the job. Now, I had applied for that particular position for the executive director. And the executive director that was in the role, he said to me, "Are you kidding?" Like, he was so surprised. I had been there for like 10 years. I had was most responsible for, I mean, all the things that go with it. And he said, "Oh, I don't, Nancy, don't even apply." And I was like, whoa, like, ooh, this guy knew it. He said, "I understand that you had applied for the position and were kind of shoot." He said, "I want you to understand what I think you bring to the table and how I see you as my second in command." So he completely turned around what was I think, gender bashing, and then said, "Hey, here's how I can use you." And he's the one that I always think of from time to time because he really taught me a lot about leadership. He was from Trinidad and Tobago. And he used
Okay.
to say to me, first of all, he used to say my name so nicely. It would be like, Nanci Appleman-Vassil. But he would talk about how in his country, a tree, fruit trees would have fruits, that all the kids would pick up stones and throw to drop the fruit. He said, "That's like leadership." He said, "When you're in a leadership position," he said, "everybody wants to throw stones at you. They want to knock you down." And because I was having some challenges, some of the members of the organization felt that I was too strict, wasn't the word, but maybe like more into standards and
Yep.
quality. And they were used to having what they could do. And then I come in and I'm like, oh no, we have to have consistency here. We have to have, we have certain clients and blah, blah, blah. And that's what the organization wanted. But then individuals within it were throwing the stones. And so it was very, and when we talk about leadership, he had a style about him that was really helped me develop my style, which was all about, let me listen to what you have to say, as opposed to let me tell you what to do. If I tell you what to do, what do I need you for?
That's a great point. I'm glad
Right.
that you brought it up. So, for everyone listening to this and watching this, what are you doing now?
So currently I still am in business. We have seen an uptick in requests in the last 2 weeks, which has been very exciting for us. But as I mentioned to you, I'm kind of balancing my time a little bit with making sure my health is good. So I make sure to do my Pilates classes and my walking and my biking and so forth. And then I'm a yaya. I'm a yaya to four grandchildren that are living 20 minutes away from me now, which allows me to get a hug, get something and spend some time with the family, and then spend some time with my spouse as well. So I feel like I'm at a point in my development where I'm still learning. I'm still learning, I'm still embracing, but I notice that there's a calmness about me now that I watch my colleagues that are maybe 10, 15 years younger than I am, and they're still, hustling. And I find that I really have narrowed down or pared down certain activities that just don't make any sense anymore for me. Like I think I mentioned this to you when we talked before, but I'm very fortunate. I have a lot of long-term clients so that the 85% of my business is repeat or referral, and 15% of it's new. So it's how much am I going to spend time wise, money wise, etc., people wise on that 15%. And the thing that amazes me is I got a call, an email actually last Friday, I think it was. Somebody who had worked with me 3 or 4 years ago. She's now in a new role with the same organization, but at a different facility, and wanted to see if I had some dates available. They had a new executive team to do some work with them. And so that's really where it's coming from now more than my hitting the pavement. Although I'm part of this women's power group, which is an open space that women come to on a Tuesday and a Thursday. And for 1 hour, you make sales calls. You are all on Zoom together and the volume's off. First, we have to identify what we're doing. Like okay, I'm going to make 5 calls in the next 30 minutes or something, or I'm going to reach out, whatever you say. And then you shut off your mic you do that work. So you see everybody working, right? Like you might look up for a minute and you're like, oh, somebody's on the phone. And then after that 30 or 40 minutes, you then share what you were able to accomplish, if you were able to accomplish it, if you were able to do more than that. So I've been doing that, which has been, I think, my way of doing outreach in a concentrated way with people, even though they're not hearing what I have to say. So that's been something new that I started doing just in the last couple of weeks. And I'm writing a book. I'm writing my second book. So I have this a book out that's called 18 Common Mistakes Small Business Owners Make. And it was based on what I was learning as I was starting. I use the analogy of Coach Nav or Coach Nancy to say, here's what, some recommendations. And then I have some other workshops that I've been doing that I thought I would add to the series. So the latest one is 18 Common Mistakes at Small Business. So I've presented that a number of times as a keynote and also as a breakout session and as a workshop for different companies. And so I've just decided that for the next period of time that I'll start to make that happen and hopefully get it published by the end of the year. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm
So it,
keeping
it
busy.
doesn't sound like you pared anything down at all. It sounds like you're incredibly busy, but that's amazing that you're doing that. And what we're going to do is we're going to provide all of the links to everything that you have to offer in the description of this episode. So wherever you can access to your book, access to your company, access to you, so that way they can get all the greatness that you have. But before I let you go, is there anything that we didn't talk about or something that I didn't ask you about that you're like, I really wish that we would have talked about this?
I'm like an O in the world of X's. The very first diversity training back in the day when I was a kid was called the Tale of O. And the Tale of O was the person that was different from all the X's, right? And so I always think that I'm an O in the world of X's because I'm not a conformist. So whereas somebody else that might be a guest on your podcast might have said, can you give me the 15 questions that you're going to ask me so that I can prep it, right? With you, I said, I'll be there because for me, it's about you ask me a question that touches my heart in a way that I can just then share as opposed to having some type of scripted thing. So yeah, I think we did what we were supposed to do today.
Well, I'm glad that you showed up that way because I think the best episodes happen when we're just two people having a connection, having a great conversation. And I know this episode's going to resonate with a bunch of folks out there, especially from the times that we're having and everything else, plus all the amazing things you have to offer. It's definitely going to resonate with everybody. So, Nanci, I really appreciate you stopping by on the show. And everybody else out there watching and listening, thank you for stopping by as well.
Great. Thank you so much.